early retirement doesn't fail because people run out of money. It fails because they pull money from the wrong place at the wrong time. And years later, RMD quietly finishes the damage. Retirement is not an age. It's a cash flow state. Most people start worrying about retirement far too late. And when they finally do, they worry about the wrong things. They ask questions like, do I have enough money? How much will my RMD be? Will taxes destroy my retirement? These are not bad questions, but they are not the first questions. The first question should always be this: if I stopped working tomorrow, how would my life actually function? Because retirement is not the day you turned 65. Retirement is the moment money stops making decisions for you. Forget age for a moment. Financially speaking, retirement has one definition and only one. Your reliable income sources are greater than or equal to your living expenses. That's it. If you reach this at 45, you are more financially free than someone who is 70 and still dependent on a paycheck. If you don't reach this at 60, you are not retired, regardless of what the calendar says. Age is a number. Cash flow is reality. This script is written for two groups of people. They worry about different things, but they are solving the same problem. Ages 30 to 49. They worry, am I already behind? Do I need to save aggressively forever? Is early retirement realistic? They are thinking about freedom. Ages 50, 60. They worry, do I still have time? What about healthcare? What happens when RMDs start? They are thinking about control. Different fears, same goal. Before we talk about RMDs, IRAs, taxes, or investment returns, you must answer one brutally honest question. What does a normal, comfortable year of my life actually cost? Not luxury, not survival mode, just life without stress. Because money without purpose is just noise. You don't need precision. You need a reasonable anchor. A very common real-world reference point for retired households is $60,000 per year. Not because it's perfect, but because it reflects how people actually live. Early retirement often costs more, not because of lifestyle, but because of health care and longer timelines. That's why early retirees often plan for $80,000 to $100,000 per year. Buffett-style thinking says this clearly: always plan for the normal year, not the perfect year. Why RMD matters, even if you're 35. Many younger investors say, RMD is a problem for future me. That's a dangerous misunderstanding. RMD doesn't affect you at 35, but the decisions you make at 35 determine how painful RMD becomes later. Every dollar placed into a pre-tax account today is a dollar that may be forced out later on the government's schedule, not yours. Don't think in tax years, think in decades. A simple long-term example. Imagine someone starting at age 38, income $120,000 per year, aggressively maximizing pre-tax retirement accounts, doing everything by the book. 30 years later, that account can become massive. At age 73, the IRS doesn't ask what you want. It tells you what to withdraw. This isn't a warning, it's arithmetic. For ages 50, 60, this is your most valuable decade. If you are between 50 and 60, you are standing at the most important financial crossroads of your life. You still have time, but you no longer have unlimited flexibility. This is the decade where good planning reduces stress later and poor planning creates forced decisions. Buffett-style wisdom is simple. The best time to prepare is when you still have options. Most people start from the wrong place. When people think about retirement planning, they usually start with accounts. How much is in my 401k? How big is my IRA? How bad will RMDs be? That approach feels logical, but it's backwards. The correct order is always life, cash flow, taxes, accounts, not the other way around. If you reverse this order, you let tax rules and account mechanics decide how you live, and that is never the goal. Every retirement plan, no matter how complex, can be reduced to 3 simple cash flow streams. There are no exceptions. Stream 1, living expenses. This is the cost of your actual life, not your ideal life, not your worst-case life, your normal life. Stream 2, reliable income. Income you can reasonably count on. Social Security, pensions, fixed annuities. These provide psychological stability even when markets are volatile. Stream 3, the gap. This is what remains after you subtract reliable income from living expenses. This gap is what your investments must cover. RMD operates only inside this third stream. Step 1, define your cost of living first. This is where most mistakes begin. People try to calculate RMDs before they know what they actually need. That's like measuring fuel efficiency without knowing how far you're driving. A realistic 2025 anchor for many U.S. households, a comfortable but not extravagant retirement lands around $60,000 per year. Early retirement often increases this to $80,000, $100,000 per year, not because of luxury, but because of health care and longer timelines. This number does not need to be perfect. It needs to be honest. Step 2, identify reliable income. Reliable income exists to reduce fear. In 2025, a very common reference point is $2,000 per month per person from Social Security. A married couple might receive $48,000 per year combined. This income doesn't make you wealthy, but it keeps you calm when markets are down, and calm is a financial asset. Step 3, calculate the gap. Now we do the simplest math in retirement planning. Example A, traditional retirement timing. Living expenses, $65,000. Social Security, $48,000. Gap, $17,000 per year. That's it. Your entire investment portfolio exists to reliably cover that $17,000, not to fund your entire lifestyle. Example B, early retirement scenario. Living expenses plus health care, $90,000. Social Security, $0. Gap, $90,000 per year. This is why early retirement is not about returns. It's about planning. Now, we place RMD exactly where it belongs. RMD does not create expenses, does not define lifestyle, does not tell you how much to spend. RMD simply tells the IRS this is the minimum amount that must now be taxed. Nothing more, nothing less. Scenario 1, when RMD is larger than your gap. This happens more often than people expect. Example, living expenses, $60,000. Social Security, $48,000. Gap, $12,000. But RMD required $30,000. You are forced to withdraw more than you need. The common mistake is thinking, I have to spend all $30,000. You don't. You only need to spend $12,000. The remaining amount can be taxed, be reinvested, be set aside for future years. RMD is a tax event, not a spending mandate. Scenario 2, when RMD is smaller than your gap. This is the opposite problem. Example, living expenses $75,000. Social Security $30,000. Gap $45,000. But RMD $20,000. If you limit yourself to RMD, you underfund your life, you delay experiences, you shrink your retirement unnecessarily. In this case, RMD is irrelevant. You must withdraw more than RMD because your life requires it. Lifestyle first, tax strategy second. Why? RMD often creates tax shock later. RMD is based on account size. If pre-tax accounts grow unchecked, RMD grows. Taxable income spikes, Medicare premiums increase. Social Security becomes more taxable. This isn't a surprise. It's math over time. At age 73, $700,000. $26,000 RMD. At age 83, $900,000. $45,000 RMD. At age 90, withdrawals can exceed $70,000 per year. The issue is not that RMD exists. The issue is ignoring it for decades. What this means for ages 30, 49. If you're younger, this is the key lesson. Every pre-tax dollar you save today becomes a future withdrawal obligation. That doesn't mean pre-tax accounts are bad. It means concentration is dangerous. I never bets everything on one outcome. Neither should you. What this means for ages 50 to 60. If you're in your 50s or early 60s, you still have control. But the clock is visible. This is the stage where planning shifts from growth, stability, accumulation, coordination. Your goal is not optimization. Your goal is avoiding forced decisions later. Early retirement doesn't just change when you stop working. It changes how the entire financial system interacts with you. Most people plan retirement like this. Work, retire, collect Social Security, deal with RMDs, early retirement breaks. That sequence. Instead, it creates something far more valuable. Time with control. And control is the most underrated asset in finance. The key difference between traditional retirement and FIRE. Let's define the difference clearly. Traditional retirement. Work until 60, 65. Claim Social Security shortly after. RMDs arrive when you're already withdrawing heavily. You move from one forced system into another forced system. Early retirement. FIRE. Stop working at 40s or 50s. Live off assets for many years. Social Security comes later. RMDs come much later. This creates a gap. That gap is not a problem. It's an opportunity. What are bridge years? Bridge years are the years between when you stop earning wages and when mandatory systems begin. Usually starts around age 50, 60, ends around 72, 73. RMD age. This can be 10 to 20 years. During this time, no RMDs, potentially no Social Security, often lower taxable income. This is the most flexible phase of your entire financial life. Why most FIRE content gets this wrong? Most FIRE discussions obsess over one number. How much do I need to retire? They talk about 4% rule, net worth targets, portfolio size. Those numbers matter, but they ignore timing. FIRE fails not because people run out of money, but because they pull money from the wrong place at the wrong time. Cash flow timing matters more than net worth. A realistic FIRE scenario, not a fantasy. Let's use a grounded example. Early retirement at age 55. Assume annual living costs $80,000. No Social Security yet. Portfolio $900,000 in taxable accounts. $700,000 in retirement accounts. Total $1.6 million. This person does not ask, is this enough? They ask, how do I fund the next 10 years without creating future problems? That is the right question. The simple logic of withdrawals during bridge years. A common conservative sequence is 1. Cash reserves. 2. Taxable brokerage accounts. 3. Pre-tax retirement accounts. 4. Roth accounts, last if possible. Why? Because taxable withdrawals often create capital gains, not ordinary income. Lower tax pressure. Flexibility in reported income. This keeps options open later. Buffett's philosophy here is simple. Never put yourself in a position where you are forced to sell at the wrong time. How FIRE connects directly to future RMDs. Here's the part most people miss. If you retire early and do nothing, retirement accounts keep growing. RMDs later become large. Taxes later become unavoidable. But if you use bridge years intentionally, you can reduce future forced withdrawals, smooth taxes over decades, maintain control instead of reacting. Early retirement doesn't automatically solve RMD. Planning does. 2 FIRE paths. Very different outcomes. Path A, passive FIRE. No planning. Retire at 55. Avoid touching retirement accounts. Let them grow untouched. At age 73, pre-tax balance, RMD, $55,000 per year. Taxes rise. Flexibility disappears. Path B, intentional FIRE. Controlled planning. Retire at 55. Use taxable assets strategically. Gradually draw from pre-tax accounts when income is low. At age 73, pre-tax balance, $900,000. RMD, $35,000 per year. Same lifestyle, very different pressure. The difference is not intelligence, it's timing. What this means for ages 30 to 49. If you're younger, this is the lesson. Early retirement is not about escaping work. It's about buying flexibility. That means not locking everything into one account type. Understanding future. Withdrawal rules. Thinking in decades, not years. Buffett doesn't rush outcomes. He structures inevitabilities. What this means for ages 50, 60. If you're approaching retirement, you still have leverage, but you must be deliberate. This is the phase where portfolio size matters less than structure. Withdrawal order matters more than returns. Your objective is not maximum growth. Your objective is minimum regret. The real risk in early retirement, the real risk is not market crashes, inflation, RMDs. The real risk is being forced to act when conditions are unfavorable. Fireworks win. You control timing. You control withdrawals. You control taxes. That's the entire philosophy. If you've stayed with this entire framework, you've probably noticed something important. This was never really about RMD. RMD is not the problem. Taxes are not the problem. Markets are not the problem. The real problem is letting systems decide for you because you didn't decide early enough. I don't win by predicting the future. I wins by structuring the present so the future has fewer bad surprises. That is what this final section is about. Let's restate the entire retirement logic in one clean sequence. 1. Decide what kind of life you want. 2. Calculate what that life costs annually. 3. Subtract reliable income sources. 4. Identify the remaining gap. 5. Decide when and from where to fill that gap. 6. Understand how taxes and RMD affect withdrawals, not lifestyle. If you do this in order, RMD becomes a footnote, not a threat. If you are in your 30s or 40s, your advantage is time, not certainty. Your job is not to get everything perfect. Your job is to avoid locking yourself into one outcome. What actually matters at this stage? 1. Know your lifestyle anchor. You don't need precision. You need a range. Ask, could I live comfortably on $60K, $70K, $80K per year? This becomes your reference point forever. 2. Diversify account types, not just investments. Too many people diversify stocks, but concentrate tax exposure. Balance matters. Pre-tax accounts, taxable accounts, Roth-style accounts. This is not optimization. It's risk management. 3. Stop optimizing for this year's tax bill. Lower taxes today can mean higher forced taxes later. Ask a better question. What does this decision do to my options in 20 years? I never sacrifice flexibility for short-term efficiency. 4. Think in decades, not milestones. Early retirement is not mandatory. Freedom is. Your goal is not to retire at 45. Your goal is to be able to. That's a very different mindset. If you are in your 50s or early 60s, this is your most important planning window. You still have time, but time now has consequences. What actually matters at this stage? 1. Estimate future RMD. Roughly, you don't need exact numbers. You need awareness. Ask, if nothing changes, will RMD later be manageable or disruptive? That single question changes behavior. 2. Identify your bridge years. Clearly, write this down. Retirement age, Social Security start age, RMD start age. Those years in between are not empty. They are the most valuable years you have. 3. Decide your withdrawal order before you need it. Do not wait until the market is down to decide where money comes from. Planning is calm. Reacting is expensive. 4. Shift from growth, obsession, to risk control. At this stage, avoiding forced withdrawals, avoiding tax spikes, avoiding panic matters more than beating the market. I don't protect returns. I protect survivability. Fire is not a goal. It's a side effect. Many people treat fire like a finish line. That's a mistake. Fire is simply the moment. Your assets give you options. You may Keep working. Change careers. Work less. Or stop entirely. The power is not stopping work. The power is choice. In a well-built plan, RMD does not determine spending. RMD does not create fear. RMD does not control lifestyle. It simply triggers taxation on money you already planned for. If RMD feels threatening, it's a signal, not of danger, but of missing structure. Imagine two identical households, same income, same savings, same investments. One plans early, one does not. At age 73, one sees RMD as routine. The other sees it as pressure. The difference was never intelligence. The difference was timing. I have repeated this idea in many forms. Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. In retirement planning, knowing what you're doing means understanding cash flow, understanding timing, understanding trade-offs, not chasing perfection, not chasing predictions, just clarity. Retirement planning is not really about money. Money is just the tool. The real goal is to reduce anxiety, reduce forced decisions, protect your future self. If you do that well, RMD will never be a problem. It will simply be a line item in a plan you already control.